here with us. Perfect. Thanks, Jackie, for that. Yeah, so to kick off, you are now at the North America Virtual Marketo User Group. So Jackie and I are your hosts today. I'm Natalie Kramer. I'm Senior Manager of Marketing Operations at Atumos. I've been here for about a year and a half. Been working in marketing operations for close to 9 years now, which seems crazy to say, but very happy to be here with you all today.
And I'm Jackie Potts. I'm Marketing Operations Manager at BombBomb. And I started working in Marketo back 13 years ago now.
Crazy numbers. Awesome. Like I mentioned, we have a lot of cool opportunities coming up, but before we get into that, just to run through some house rules for the user group. Please remember, if this is your first time, no self-promotion or pitching of any kind is permitted at the user groups. Please don't contact people outside of the user group without their consent. And then if any of our mug members today share their use case, please don't share that information without their consent either. And then we will be recording the mug today. So just some information here about the recording. If you're not comfortable with being on the live recording, feel free to drop off. We will be posting it to our user group page here, probably later this week, early next week, and sending out the recording as well. And if you have any information about, the recording or anything like that, there's our email addresses here, as well as the advocacy@adobe.com email as well. All right, so then when you signed up, you likely connected with our chapter, the North America Virtual Mug on Bevy. If you need to sign up still, the URL is here, and that'll just make sure that you have all of the latest information about our upcoming events. We're going to be wrapping it up here soon for the year, but we'll have some great things coming too in 2024. A lot of upcoming opportunities for mug members. As I mentioned earlier, there's going to be an event. The Skills Exchange is going to be in New York City. Oh, I guess I misspoke. It's early November. So it's going to be an in-person event for anybody up in the Northeast. You can scan the QR code here, and we will share the presentation after the fact too, if you're interested in joining. Yeah, some more information here too. So November 9th, and then a little bit of the schedule too. And then there's some great webinars coming up in October. We missed the one last week on Marketo Sales Insights. I think the recording is available. So if you're interested, you could always register and get that on-demand version. And then next week, there is a session, or tomorrow, there's a session on dynamic chat in Sensei, the Gen AI tool from Adobe. So we could really continue the conversation from our user group today. And then next week, there's a session on Marketo Measure. So lots of great things coming up. And then Adobe is looking for mug member feedback. So if you're interested in taking the survey and providing some of your feedback on your experience with the mug program, that is always appreciated too. And Adobe recently released a new Marketo course. So if you're new to Marketo, or if you have people in your organization or in your network who are, this is a really great resource for people who are just learning Marketo from the beginning. It's about a 2.5-hour course that walks you through all of the different things about Marketo. And that's available out in the Experience League website too. So great tool to check out. And then finally, Adobe is looking for more Marketo Engage feedback on Trust Radius. So if you like to fill out forms and provide feedback, you will receive a $25 gift card. So there's a QR code here that you can scan to complete that review on Trust Radius, and that just needs to be completed by the end of the month. So be sure to check that out. And one more thing, like we mentioned, there's a lot of good opportunities this month, a lot of good user groups happening. A lot of them are going back to in-person, but there are definitely still some virtual meetings. So be sure to check those out, and some of the international ones as well. So lots of great stuff going on. But with that, we'll go ahead, I'll stop sharing, and we will introduce our speaker today. So we are so excited to have Rachel Squire here with us. Rachel is an independent marketing ops consultant who specializes in all things Marketo. She's a former Marketo champ and a mug leader, and really is passionate about marketing attribution and analytics. So we're super happy to have Rachel here. We'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you for that intro. Let me share my screen. Can you see the blue slide here? Okay, cool.
Yep.
Awesome. I will preface this by saying, as I was kind of putting these slides together, I realized there was a lot to chat, a lot more than I kind of thought I could cram into an hour. So I'm going to kind of talk quickly, and I might not go too deep into detail on a few things, but I'll have the chat open over here. I'll try to watch it. Feel free to, like, anyone can just like jump in and tell me to, spend more time on something or whatever. So anyway, we're going to get through what we can, and we'll try to cover all of the kind of important categories. And I will try to save some time at the end as well for some questions. But with that being said, I just kind of want to do a quick intro to dynamic chat. So I don't know if everyone here has been using chat yet. It's a new-ish tool. So Marketo just released it, I think, at the beginning of this year as kind of an included add-on to the existing Marketo package that most people already have who are probably on this call. So because of that, we're going to start chatting through, should you make a switch, whether you have an existing tool or not, setting it up as a first chat experiment, talking about the actual technical setup. We're not going to get through every single step, but kind of a high level overview of what it looks like to get started from a technical perspective. Then we'll talk about how to equip your sales team to make sure that this implementation is a success and you don't waste your time. And then finally, brief touch on reporting and analytics. We could probably talk about that itself for a full hour, but we will talk a little bit about how we can get started with that as well. So just kind of from a high level, I want to talk about whether you should switch to dynamic chat. This is, so as Natalie mentioned, I'm an independent consultant. Every single client of mine has asked me at some point this year, should I switch to dynamic chat? And it's included, right? That's a natural thing to wonder because you don't have to pay extra, at least for kind of the base level. So you already have it, definitely worth considering. So if you are thinking about either switching to dynamic chat or possibly you don't have a chatbot on your website yet and you're thinking about implementing it, this is just a way to start thinking about whether it might be worth it for you. Obviously, the biggest pro, or the initial one, is that there's no additional cost, right? That's the reason most people are beginning to think about using it. But that's not the only reason. So we're all MOPS people. We've all been there. Someone on marketing or sales or at the company says, hey, I bought this tool. Can you set it up tomorrow? And you're like, okay, well, that's not how that works. This is actually a great one because you don't have to integrate it with Marketo. So at least that initial, how do we make this work with our existing tech stack? It's already figured out for you. So that makes it a really low barrier to entry from that perspective. It's also pretty intuitive to use. There are, I've used a handful of different chatbots. I would say this one isn't a complicated one. Once you get in there and start using it, it's pretty intuitive. Marketo claims you can go live in 15 minutes with it, which actually probably is true. I would say there's a lot more that you would want to set up in order to really have the best practices implemented, but you really actually can get like a test chat on a page up and running in 15 minutes and see what happens. And then, yeah, I already mentioned like native connections with Marketo. There's also an extra feature called conversational flows, which we will talk about in a little bit, that sits on it sits on a Marketo form, and that's a native connection. So it's already there. We'll explore what that looks like in a little bit, but just keep in mind that those are some things you're not going to get with any other chatbot. Some cons. Not as robust as some of the other enterprise level tools. I will say with the latest release, they've come a lot closer. So there's a lot more functionality now that they've released. I think it was early September, maybe, that it actually brings it a lot closer to maybe like a Drift or other tools that may be more leading in the market right now. But there are still some limitations. The biggest one, and that's going to come to the bottom point as well, the integration with Salesforce is not there. So one huge perk to some chat tools are that you can go into Salesforce and easily see the exact conversations that people are having, what content they're downloading, do whatever you want in Salesforce really as a result of those. That native integration, that does not exist that way. So you can do things to overcome that. It doesn't mean you will never have that ability. You just have to kind of work a little harder to get the benefits that you would get from a tool that has a native integration. And then this one is maybe just a me nitpicky thing, but I have found this to be a little bit of a touchy point with some of my sales reps, is that the live chat notifications, they're in browser only. So you have to be logged into the chat. You have to have the browser window open at somewhere on your screen in order to be able to see when someone is trying to chat during a live chat.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Oh, I see in the chat, we introduced browser notification, which will notify sales agents without them having the product open. That is incredible. Thank you so much. That just made my day. Okay, well, that's great. I love it. We're going to talk about the technical setup, and we're not going to get super into the weeds. I'm not going to show you like all the exact clicks to do everything, because we could easily spend the whole hour on that. But I'm going to do as much as I can in the chunk of time I have allotted for this. And there's really great documentation actually on Marketo. I forget what they're called, but the product docs. They outline how to set this up really well, especially the actual chat tool part of it. So there's kind of two sides. There's how to set up the program and all that in Marketo, and then the chat side, how to set it up in the dynamic chat tool. The documentation covers that really well. I'm going to talk about it a little bit, and then we're going to spend a little more time on the program today. So before we dig into that, I just want to specify, get a little deeper into the difference between dialogues and conversational flows. So there's two different ways that you can kind of bring your web visitors through this journey where they interact with whatever these conversations that you set up are on your site. The first of those is dialogues. That's your traditional little, hello, I'm your chatbot in the bottom right corner of your website. It's exactly like any other chatbot you've interacted with. It works very well. It's intuitive to use. And I'm not going to really dig into that as much because you all know what a chatbot is. Conversational flows are a little different, and they're part of the newest release. That being said, I actually have not really used them that much. I just experimented a little since they are new. So if anyone wants to add or correct anything I say, feel free to jump in. But conversational flows are pretty cool. They actually, and I'm going to show you this slide while I talk about it. So you have a dialogue on the left, just that's your normal chat. And on the right, this is a little really speeded up preview of what it looks like. So someone clicks your button, and this is actually built into a Marketo form. And we'll talk about that shortly. And it pops up with the same type of dialogue. It says, what would you like to learn about? This is actually moving really fast. Okay. What would you like to learn about? It's the same actual flow that you would for a dialogue. So you can tell Marketo, ask them about this, collect this information. It just has a very different user experience. And there is a really great interactive preview on Marketo's website, and there's a link in this slide. So if anyone wants that, you can go kind of see for yourself what it looks like without the flashy on the screen. But it's, in my opinion, really engaging way that you can reach people that are a little bit more proactive than just the chatbot. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the chat tool. So when you go into Marketo, you're in My Marketo, that opening screen, and you click on Dynamic Chat. In the left-hand side, you'll see a little menu. And the very first thing is dialogues. So that dialogues that's your chat. That's I won't use the other industry terms for other tools, but it's the actual like conversation. So this is where you're going to go in and set up the actual conversation people are going to have with your chatbot on your site. So when you click on dialogues, you can see a place to, like, you can see all of the dialogues you have, and I'll talk about that in a second. But when we're going to go ahead and create a new one, this is what options we're going to be set with. So you set your audience. Again, we don't always want the same dialogues to show to everyone, right? We want to be smart about this. So maybe we want to target people who are almost an MQL, try to get them to request a demo. But someone who just came to the site or someone who's been a customer for 10 years, neither of those we're probably going to want to push a demo on, right? So in this section, we're going to really craft what audience we want this particular dialogue to target. And you can also set specific pages, either inclusive or exclusive. So maybe you want a default one that's on every page, but you have specific high value pages that you want additional dialogues on. You can really get creative here. This is your chance to play around. And this is why setting up the reporting is so important, because then you can understand how to tweak this and make it the most engaging for your different audiences. Yes, you can use custom fields. There's a place in the settings where you can sync which fields over from Marketo. So I think this is kind of the default, but you can sync whatever fields you want. When we set our audience, now we're going to have, this is the stream designer right here. This is where we build the actual conversation. I stole this from Marketo's product docs, so you can actually go view this, the technical documentation if you'd like. But this is just like any other visualization kind of flow chart tool that you might use. A lot of chatbots work this way. So I love that they maintain this. It's kind of, again, low barrier to entry, right? If you already know how to use the chatbot tool, this should be fairly intuitive. You can drag different types of ways to interact with people. So you can send them a message, you can ask them a question that will give them multiple choices. They can select their answer. You can upload a document. This is where you might say, would you like to download an ebook? You can capture information. So a lot of times, yeah, I'd like to download the ebook. Okay, what's your email address? You have to put it in to get the content. Appointment scheduler. So you can prompt people to schedule a demo or, you know, some sort of appointment with your SDR team, and they integrate their calendars directly here. And then you can set goals, which I will circle back in just a second. Okay, so goals are actually one of the main, not main, but it's really important to think about how you want to set up your goals with dynamic chat. And I'm going to come back to the why, but I want to show you the how first. So when you're setting up your flow, your dialogue, when you get to a point where something important happens, you're going to create a goal. If we look here, it's one of these actions that you can include in your chat. And I typically recommend starting with a small list. You can create them as you go, and you can always add more. But I like to create some sort of engagement goal, right? They download content, something that you would maybe score for, but that is not worth full hand raiser points. And then another goal for, hey, this person is a hand raiser, they want to talk to me, maybe they're scheduling an appointment. Those two goals are, in my opinion, the two most important ones, because that's the whole point of like marketing, is setting people over to eventually become a customer. So we want to track the stages that they're taking to get there. So we create these goals. In this case, this person says, yeah, I would like the ebook. We get their email address. Once they provide it, we say, here you go. And we log a goal that they have engaged with this dialogue. Okay, so put a pin in that, because I want to talk about conversational flows, and then we'll circle back on what to do with all of this. So conversational flow, I didn't include what it looks like here because it's almost identical. Seriously, almost identical. But again, the user interface is very different. So conversational flows, one thing that makes them stand out is that they live on your Marketo forms. So if you haven't noticed, your forms look like this now. When you go into your settings, you now have a section kind of on the bottom that says conversational flow settings. It's default to disabled. When you turn it on, you get this little box. Now, you can tell Marketo in the form, based on, I believe you can use smart lists, static lists. You can also use things in the form directly to say, maybe if their country is United States or Canada, show the English conversational flow. Maybe if it's Spain, show the Spanish one. You know, if their target account, show this, you know, hot deal one, whatever you want. You can get really custom, or you can just define one, you know, however you would typically do your targeting. You're going to do the same strategy here. But, oh, and then one other thing I wanted to mention, right now, the only delivery type is pop-up. So if you remember the demo, when you clicked whatever the button was, it popped up and it was like, hey, interact with me. They are saying that soon they're going to have more delivery types, which I think will be cool to see. Right now, it's just pop-up, but it will be interesting to experiment with that as additional releases come out. Let's see. Is there a different level of license? I'm looking at the chat real quick. Is there a different level of license access needed to use documents in a flow? I received an error message when I tried to use that feature. Bree, I don't believe there is, but I can find out for sure for you on that. If you circle back, or if there's someone from Marketo who happens to know the answer to that one. Okay, let's talk about setting up the Marketo program. So this is just an example of a Marketo program I might set up. I recommend setting up a separate program for each dialogue and conversational flow. Now, we all know, you know, there are people who will go to town creating a separate program for every UTM, campaign source, medium, combination, content. And that's how you get the best reporting. We all know that sometimes that's not scalable, and that's okay. But as you're getting started at the very beginning, you're not going to have a lot of dialogues or a lot of conversational flows. It's worth it to set up specific programs each time, at least when you're getting started, so you can really dig into what's working and what's not. So the Marketo program is going to look identical, whether it's a conversational flow or a dialogue. Consider putting which one it is in the naming convention if you want to know the difference. Your program's going to look like this, very basic. In this example, we have 3 statuses. This is a chat channel, which has been created with member, engaged, and I think we use the word influenced, but requested follow-up is what it means here, in our channel. So in our chat default program that is in the chat channel, our first smart campaign is going to look like this, real simple. Engages with the dialogue, our main dialogue. This program is tracking the main dialogue. Engaging with the dialogue means that they go in and they do something with the dialogue. It doesn't necessarily mean they actually download the content or that they, schedule a meeting. It just means that they went in and they started having an interaction of some sort with the chatbot. So we're going to track anyone who goes in and has some sort of interaction and just change their status to member. Pretend like this is the same program. I think I changed the name while I was working on it. But we're going to change their status to member and set the acquisition program. And that's it. All we're doing is measuring here. The second smart campaign, we're going to track people who are engaging. And this is particularly useful for scoring purposes. So when someone reaches a dialogue goal, so if you remember back to when we set the engaged goal, when someone came in and they said, I want to download that ebook, this is why, or this is where we're going to be tracking that. So there is a trigger for reaching a dialogue goal, and all of your goals will show here, all of your dialogues will show here. In this particular example, they reached the engaged goal, and so we are going to change their status to engaged, start their acquisition program. This is fairly straightforward for any sort of content, digital. A lot of Marketo programs are set up this way. So we're just going to maintain that same type of setup. Whatever you use for those digital assets, we're going to use here. This is where someone's requesting to be contacted. This one might look a little different. Actually, now knowing the browser notification thing, you might not even need all of this, but I'm going to show you anyway, in case your sales team wants it. So if you remember back, I don't remember how long I showed that screen, but in my pretend dialogue that I set up, there's an option where someone says, hey, I'd like to talk to someone. So as we all know, as the end user, sometimes we're like, I want to get on a call right now and get this figured out. Sometimes you want a live chat. Sometimes you just want an email and don't want to have to talk to anyone. So we like to set up how would you like to be contacted as a kind of multiple choice option where people can decide how they want to be contacted. In Marketo, you can map any collected information to any field. Just make sure it doesn't like mess anything up in your system. I recommend, this is outside of chat, having some temp fields, and I always have a temp string field, and it's kind of just a proxy field. Whenever I need a temporary field, throw it in there. So in this example, how would you like to be contacted? The responses are being logged to this temp string field, and we're going to utilize that in our Smart campaign. So someone says, yeah, I want to be contacted. In my particular example, we had two different goals. We had a contact me goal and a live chat goal, mostly because we were actually trying to push people to use the chat. We wanted to be able to track it differently. So in this example, anytime someone reaches one of the hand raiser goals, this is the actions that are going to happen. This is where it gets a little bit longer. So just like before, we're going to change their program status to influenced. In my situation, influenced means they wanted to talk to sales. We're going to set the acquisition program. Here, we're going to call a Slack webhook. So I don't know how familiar all of you are with Slack, but it has a really easy to use integration builder where you can send webhooks to Slack and it will post that information in a channel or a direct message. It's really useful for things like this, where if someone says, hey, I want to talk to a rep, you want that rep to talk to them like yesterday, right? Like they are ready. And so we want to get in front of the sales as fast as humanly possible. So I always recommend, when possible, to use a Slack alert, because everyone's got Slack open and they're looking at it all day, every day. They're going to see it. There's lots of good information about how to set up a Slack integration with Marketo. Zapier has a pretty easy way to do it as well, if you want to go that route. Once we send the Slack alert, we also send a email alert and create a Salesforce task, because like I said, this person's ready to be contacted. We do not want to lose the momentum. We are going to get sales attention in any way we possibly can. Now, I'm sure your sales team's aware if you're doing this, but this is how I've seen it be most successful. And then finally, and this is just basic Marketo hygiene, if you're using a proxy field, when you're done using it, clear it out. I actually use that temp string field in my Slack alert, in my email alert, and in my task. You can see it in the task here. So people know what type of contact they're requesting. So it's not just like, oh, this person wants to be contacted and you forget how. So if they want to be called, it'll say chat contact request type, call me. So once we pass along that information, we don't need to store it anymore. We're clearing it out. And that's it. So the program itself is fairly simple. Once you've set it up once, you can create a program template out of it, and it's pretty much rinse and repeat at that point. The more tokens you use, literally just activate it for future dialogues and change the triggers to look at your new dialogues and conversational flows. But it's pretty straightforward. So the program is now active on passing people over to sales. And this is how we're going to be measuring, people's engagement. And I almost forgot about this. So I did want to just briefly show the triggers and filters that are available in Marketo. When you type dynamic chat, they all show up. You can look at them. But basically you can, if someone's clicking in a conversational flow or in a dialogue, if they're engaging with it, again, engaging just means they go in and click around a little bit, initiate that conversation. Interacting with documents, reaching a goal, scheduling a meeting, and all of those are available in triggers as well as in filters. A lot of them have constraints too. One thing I didn't mention that actually is really important that I want to speak to very quickly. So engages with the dialogue, they can continue to engage with the same dialogue over and over again as they continue to talk. So if you want to make sure it only triggers one time, like if, for example, you are scoring off of this, you're going to click add constraint, and I believe it's called status. There's a way to say only trigger when the dialogue is complete. If you're triggering something that people can run through every time, that is going to have, like scoring, impact every time they run through it, make sure the dialogue is set to be completed before you trigger it, or you're going to find crazy stuff happening. Definitely learned that one from experience, if you can't tell. Okay, so now that we know how we can set up the Marketo program, I just want to briefly mention things to consider. Lead source and lead source detail. You can use, if you're using programs, you can use the program channel to set these things, or you can use the triggers that we mentioned here. But one thing that Dynamic Chat has is that the lead source value is set by the API, and you can't change it and you can't turn it off. So any newly acquired names you get from my Dynamic Chat, conversational flow, or dialogue are going to come in with, I think it's chatbot. I think it's called chatbot in one word, as their lead source. And you can't change that value and you can't clear out that value. What you can do is you can create a flow that changes it. There are considerations with that, field blocking, all of that. I'm not going to get super into that right now, but that's just one thing to keep in mind. Also, of course, lead scoring. That's definitely worth scoring on. You can do that, I think I had mentioned, by either the programs themselves or the triggers, a couple ways to do that, as well as, of course, interesting moments. Interesting moments, I think I mentioned at the beginning, there's not that native Salesforce pull in all of that dialogue content. But interesting moments are the way that you're going to now pass over to sales whatever information that you need to out of this conversational flow or dialogue. You have to do a little bit of work with mapping the data to fields, and I'm not going to get into all of that right now, although hopefully we'll have a blog post coming out about that in a little bit. But regardless, definitely dig into some of the things you can do, because sales is going to be interested in like the conversation, right? You don't want sales to call and be like, so I heard you wanted to talk to me, but I wasn't sure about what. And they're like, well, actually, I did say what, you don't want that. So pay attention to everything that's in there, get it over to sales. Okay, let's see, I got a question here. Okay, I noticed you shared recommendations to alert sales teams when someone wants to connect with a salesperson. Is there not a native functionality within Dynamic Chat for a sales team member to chat live with the prospect? That's a great question, Brittany. So in Dynamic Chat, it looks, I don't think I have a screenshot, but in Dynamic Chat, there's, hold on, actually, I do have a screenshot. Never mind, I'm gonna skip ahead. Basically, when your sales team is logged into the browser, and I forget who mentioned this, but basically there's a pop-up on the browser that pops up when someone says they're ready to chat. It'll say so-and-so is, interested in a live chat, or I think it says requested a live chat. So there is a browser notification. It's just, I like to have additional ways, especially because until just recently, it wasn't possible to do it unless you were actively logged into the tool. Whereas now it looks like you can have it pop up anyway, which is great. Let's see, how was the rollout to sales reps and how large was the sales team? Okay, Christine, that is a great question, because that's actually what I'm about to talk to. So if I don't answer your question in the next few slides, please let me know and I'll happily circle back on that. So equipping the sales team is obviously super important, right? Because you don't want to prep this lead and have them go through this amazing conversation where they're like, oh my gosh, I want to give you all my money right now. And then sales is like, I don't know what to do with this. So it's really important to equip your sales team so that they are ready and prepared to basically respond to these requests and to handle these leads in a way that makes them want to continue the conversation. So this one I'm going to just quickly talk through, but this is because this is a little more technical, but there's really great documentation around all of this. So I recommend going to Adobe's documentation and looking at this as you are adding agents, aka salespeople. So in Dynamic Chat, there are lots of things, lots of customizations that you can do to add your salespeople and set them up for success. First things first, when you actually add them, you do it in the Adobe Admin Console. You don't do it in Marketo, you don't do it in the chat tool. So you go to the admin console, you add them as a chat user, which is nice because they don't have to go through Marketo. If they are like a marketing user, You can also set it up so that they can log in through Marketo, which I would assume most people on this call are accessing it that way. The next thing I wanted to chat about was live chat. So of course, live chat requires a person, right? You can't have a live chat without a live person on the other end. Live chat is new, so the dynamic chat tool did not have live chat functionality until the latest release, which is really cool that this is now a feature because I think a lot of people were missing that. The way that live chat works, and again, I'm not going to get super technical, great documentation out there on this. Oh wait, actually I do have a screenshot for you though. Okay. Let's look here. This is what live chat looks like. So this is what it's going to look like for your sales team. The documentation walks you through how to get here. But when someone says, hey, I want to chat with a salesperson, the chat tool will look through everyone who's online right now. The sales team can either set their hours, or they can go in and just toggle on and off up here, whether or not they're available. You can do it either way. I recommend, if you're not going to rely on the browser notifications, being up, that you just set your hours. And when someone requests a chat, they're all going to pop up here, kind of like other chat tools. You click on the open chat. I did this example chat with one of my sales reps when I was teaching him how to use the tool. So I interacted with the chatbot. I said, I want to chat now. He goes, hi. I say hello. And then that was it. I reached my engaged goal because I said I wanted to contact this, all this happened. So this is kind of what the chat's going to look like. And I recommend going through an example chat with at least, SDRs or heavy users, because it makes them a lot more comfortable about using the tool. It is a big time investment on your part, but I have found it to be worth it. Let's see. Again, in the settings, documentation on this is great. If no one is available, you can set down here, you can set a fallback message. So it's possible that someone will say, hey, I want a live chat and there's no one online. You can set either the system default, sorry, no one's available to chat this time, or you can do a custom message. I always recommend including the meeting booking option. And so if you remember back to the beginning, you can have an agent set up their calendar. And in fact, these pictures are in the wrong order, but that's what this looks like. Again, documentation on this is great. The agents, your sales reps, can go in and hook up their calendars. And this will allow people to book a meeting directly, kind of like a Calendly tool. Lots of tools have this and they work really well. So if no one's available to chat, you can default to, hey, let's go ahead and book a meeting instead. Okay. 2 more pictures and then I'll jump to the questions. So in, again, the settings, you can set routing rules. Routing rules are really great because, maybe you just want to round robin between SDRs, but maybe you want to say, hey, my target accounts need to go to specific salespeople, or this SDR only works with North America and this SDR works with South America. So you can set round robin, or you can set routing rules.
Did it just finish?
You can set routing rules for any conversational flow or dialogue. For this works both for live chat and for booking meetings. And it's kind of just like a Marketo Smart List, so I won't get too deep into that either. Just think everything you know about routing rules and other tools and everything you know about Smart Lists, they have a baby. It looks like this. So I'm not going to get too deep into it, but this is, really important to set up and make sure that these are ready to go before you start sending people over to sales reps. Okay, so I'm going to pause and see the questions that are coming in, although I think we might have been answered. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to speak a little bit to your question, Christine. So the most recent rollout I did of this, we have rolled it out to an SDR team of 5 and have 15 sales reps that are going to be getting it soon. I will say the rollout to SDRs is usually a little bit easier than to sales reps, and I think that's somewhat to be expected, and that's okay. But I just recommend setting aside a lot of time for one-on-one training. So group trainings are great, making sure you help everyone share their screen, make sure they get their calendars set up, make sure they know, exactly what a live chat's going to look like or what a meeting request is going to look like. Make sure they know how to handle the alerts if they're getting alerts. And arguably, most importantly, make sure they know what to say. That's not necessarily always in the MOPS, realm to actually write the scripting for that. But I recommend, if you want this to be successful, work with either your sales enablement team or demand gen or whoever it is who typically provides that or works with sales to provide that, to make sure that they are well equipped to actually handle the conversations, so that, they could be ready all day, ready for the chat and have no idea what to do when the time comes. So I strongly recommend that. But I'll say every SDR and the one sales rep that I worked with in this most recent implementation, it was all like a 15 to half hour long meeting, up and running, done. It's pretty straightforward. And the more that you do it, the more they can ask each other for help and the less you need to be involved too. Let's see. Are there stats, data? Yes, I will get to the reporting in a minute. Yes, video tutorials, fantastic. Let's see. Okay, yes, sales manager can manage availability of their team members. And can we have inside sales managers who want to be able to toggle available on behalf of their team members? Is that possible? I believe so. Oh, yes, looks like that is also possible. Man, look, this is great. I don't even have to answer the questions. Okay, I'm gonna keep going with the slides. So I think I had just mentioned live demo for calendar and live chat is super important. It really just makes sure your sales team feels comfortable and feels like they're not going to get spammed. Make sure they know how to set up their calendar availability so they're not getting meetings scheduled at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night. Let's see, setting up, yes, additional alerts. I've said that 100 times. I'm going to stop talking about that. And then there are additional sales enablement tools available in the Prime. That's the paid package. I won't get into that because I believe it will be covered in the session tomorrow. But I'll just say it looks pretty cool. There's like these almost like battle cards that you can implement and stuff. Check it out. It's cool. I haven't used it, but if you use it, please let me know because I'm super curious about it. And then this is our last section. I'm going to talk a little bit about reporting and analytics and preface this by saying we're just scratching the surface here. There's so much that we can do with reporting and analytics for any marketing tactic, and the digital ones get even more complicated. But this is kind of what we can do out of the box with what I've shown you today without any extra work. So in the chat tool, and I should have shown you all this from the beginning, this menu on the left is the menu I keep referencing. And then if you want to go to settings, you click on here, just like in Marketo. But most of your stuff, agents, all of your configuration, it's all on the left. There's a section here for analytics, and we're going to talk about the 3 different pieces. So the first one is global performance. This is giving you a high-level overview of everything that's going on. So here we can see just how many chat, and this is everything, right? The anonymous and known visitors. You can set the date range. You can look at dialogues or conversational flows. In this case, both. See how many people are triggering it, how many people are actually engaging, how many people are completing, coming to the end of a conversation. You can see how many people were acquiring, meetings that are being booked, and goals that are being reached. Conversion rate is showing you to the goal that's being reached. And then this is just showing you engagement over time. Like in this particular example, it's total triggered, but you can toggle between different metrics. Down at the bottom, we can see which pages are engaging people with the highest volume. Again, this is not a rate, right? But this is the highest volume that it's triggering people or that people are actually engaging, which pages it's on. And then on the right, this is where we can see what's converting. This view is going to be your meetings specifically. So I don't know about all of you, but the meetings are actually, in my experience with multiple clients, the meetings are actually the most successful way to get to sales with this tool versus even the live chat. So this meeting performance overview is really great. It's showing you how many meetings are being scheduled, who are they being scheduled with, where are they coming from, and then the top meeting sources. So those are your actual pages. Those are actual pages. And then an overview of just the recent meetings, which people are being met with, who on your team are they meeting with, and when. So, and you can again separate this from dialogues and conversational flows. In my opinion, We just want the meetings. We don't care where they came from. We want them to be good quality meetings, and we want them to happen a lot. So this kind of gives you an overview of that. And then finally, the final view is your live chat performance directly. So of course, a chatbot, we're going to have people who actually want to talk. A lot of people go into a chatbot looking for someone to talk to. So this is going to show you how many live chats we're having over a period of time, how many live chats have happened, how long they're chatting for, the average response time, which is kind of nice because you can see that by team member. You can even filter by team at the top in the date. You can see which sources are driving the actual chats, because sometimes certain pages are more likely to convert to live chat versus content downloads and whatnot. And then you can see the live chats that have happened recently and with whom. The last thing on analytics, and actually the last thing I have for you today, is a little bit of additional reporting. So of course, you've got your built-in program reports in Marketo, your campaign activity. So you can see, just the number of people who are becoming a member, which means they're engaging with the dialogue, how many people are responding by downloading content and hitting that engaged status, and how many people are actually, of course, converting to go to sales. And your program performance reports, again, this is the built-in Marketo reporting. And once you build your programs, you can use it here. You can use your Salesforce campaign reporting, Visible, or anywhere else that you use programs or campaigns for marketing reporting. It's available for you. There are lots of things to consider when you're doing your reporting on this, and we could talk about that for a whole hour. But just to get you started, this will give you the framework you need to kind of get a view into what's happening with your chats and where you can at least start to pass people to sales and make improvements and all of that. So that's all I have for you today. We have about 10 minutes left. If anyone has any questions or comments or concerns, now's your chance.
This was so great. I know you're getting some good feedback and shout outs in the chat here. Looks like we just had a question come through.
Let's see.
Can conversations continue where they left off from page to page, or does it restart when going to a new page?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm pretty sure they continue, but I am actually not going to put money on that. I'm pretty sure they continue, but I would check on that for sure. Okay, awesome.
Awesome. And we do encourage you to hang on here until the end. We have some giveaways, some gift cards that we'll be drawing here. So if you stick through it with questions, there will be a little bit of a reward at the end for a few of you. So you can hang on here a few more minutes. Any other last questions for Rachel?
I have a question. So I have noticed that when we are testing the chat, it seems like by design, you don't see the same interaction twice, which makes sense. Is there any way to reset it for someone that's already a record in Marketo?
You mean like for testing purposes?
Yeah.
I usually just go incognito because then it'll show up each time.
Yeah, okay.
See, can you email the user a transcript of the chat or dialogue? I don't believe you can at this time, unless that's changed. Fantastic. We're working towards introducing repeat. Oh, okay. That's actually the previous question. I don't believe you can email a dialogue or a transaction, but I think they can. I think they're working on that.
And yes, we'll definitely be sending out the recording here later this week, early next week, and then it'll be updated on our user group site as well. So you can look out for it there. It might beat us before we get the email out to you all. So cool. Last call for questions for Rachel. Anyone else want to jump off mute or add something in the chat? Go ahead.
Brittany, I have done that. I'd be happy to chat with you offline about it if you'd like to reach out. My email's in the bottom right here. or
Awesome.
anyone else, obviously, feel free to.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. Jackie, did you have a chance to draw names for our winners today?
Yes, I do have our winners today. So congrats to Danielle Davis, Jumi. I think I had a typo, Paramal, and Julia Bricado. If you three can either message me in here your email address, or you can email me your email address so that I can get those sent out to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rachel, so much for the session today. It was super interesting. A lot of great questions around it. Like I said, we'll be posting the recording and sending that out after the fact. And, definitely sign up for our Marketo user group on Bevy so that you can keep getting all of our announcements. I know we have a lot of new faces here today, so we can't wait to see you all again in the future. Thanks, everyone. Picked out the stragglers.
Stop the recording.